Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hey. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hey. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Rakshamam. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Pahimam. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshamam. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahimam. Om Jnana Timurandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurinmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Bodhavani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane. Trinadapi Sunichena Torad Iva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Kevalam. Kalo Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatir Anyata. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adigo Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Krishna Book, Chapter 17, Part 3. Krishna swallows the forest fire. Since it was almost night, and all the inhabitants of Vrndavan, including the cows and calves, were very tired, they decided to take their rest on the riverbank. In the middle of the night, while they were taking rest, there was suddenly a great forest fire, and it quickly appeared that the forest fire would soon devour all the inhabitants of Vrndavan. As soon as they felt the warmth of the fire, immediately they took shelter of Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although he was playing just like their child. And they began to say, Krishna Krishna Mahabhaga, Hey Rama Mita Vikrama, Esha gorattamo bhanis tavakan grasate hinaha sudustarana swan pahi kalagne surida prabho na shaknumastvach charanang santyaktum akuto bayam. Our dear Krishna, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, O dear Balarama, reservoir of all strength, please try to save us from this all-devouring and devastating fire. We have no shelter other than you. This devastating fire will swallow us all. Thus, they prayed to Krishna, saying that they could not take any shelter other than his lotus feet. Lord Krishna, being compassionate upon his own townspeople, immediately swallowed up the whole forest fire and saved them. This was not impossible for Krishna, because Krishna is Ananta, unlimited. Krishna has unlimited power to do anything he desires. Om Tat Sat. Krishna Book, Chapter 18, Part 1. A Description of Vrndavan. After extinguishing the devastating forest fire, Lord Krishna, surrounded by his relatives, friends, cows, calves, and bulls, and being glorified by his friends, who were singing, again entered Vrndavan, which is always full of cows. And while Krishna and Balaram were enjoying life in Vrndavan, in the midst of the cowherder boys and girls, the season gradually changed to summer. The summer season in India is not very much welcomed because out of the excessive heat. But in Vrndavan, everyone was pleased because summer there appeared just like spring. And this was possible only because Lord Krishna and Balaram, who are the controllers even of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, were residing there. In Vrndavan, there are many falls which are always pouring water, and the sound is so sweet that it covers the sound of the crickets. And because water flows all over, the forest always looks very green and beautiful. The inhabitants of Vrndavan were never disturbed by the scorching heat of the sun or the high summer temperatures. The lakes of Vrndavan are surrounded by green grass, and various kinds of lotus flowers bloom there, such as the Kalhara, Kunja, and Utpala. And the wind blowing in Vrndavan carries the aromatic pollen of those lotus flowers. When the particles of water from the waves of the Yamuna, the lakes, and the waterfalls touched the bodies of the inhabitants of Vrndavan, automatically they felt a cooling effect. Therefore, they were practically undisturbed by the summer season. Vrndavan is such a nice place. Flowers are always blooming, and there are even various kinds of decorated deer. Birds are chirping, peacocks are crowing and dancing, and bees are humming about. The cuckoos there in Vrndavan sing nicely in 5 kinds of tunes. The reservoir of all pleasure, Krishna himself, blowing upon his flute, accompanied by his elder brother Balaram and the other cowherder boys, as well as the cows, then entered the beautiful forest of Vrndavan in order to enjoy the atmosphere. They walked into the midst of the newly grown leaves of trees whose flowers resembled peacock feathers. They were garlanded by those flowers and decorated with saffron chalk. Sometimes they were dancing and singing, and sometimes wrestling with one another. And while Krishna danced, some of the cowherder boys sang, and others played on flutes. Some bugled on buffalo horns, or clapped their hands praising Krishna. "Oh, dear brother, you are dancing very nicely." Actually, all these cowherder boys were demigods descended from higher planets just to assist Krishna in his pastimes. The demigods, garbed in the dress of the cowherder boys, were encouraging Krishna in his dancing, just as one artist encourages another with praise. Up to that time, neither Balaram nor Krishna had undergone the hair-cutting ceremony. Therefore, their hair was clustered like crow's feathers. And they were always playing hide and seek with their boyfriends, or jumping or fighting with them. Sometimes, while Krishna's cowherder friends were chanting and dancing, Krishna would also praise them. "Oh, my dear friends, you are dancing and singing very nicely." The cowherder boys played at catching ball with fruits such as bale and amalaka. They played blind man's bluff, challenging and touching one another, sometimes imitating the forest deer and various kinds of birds. They joked with one another by imitating the croaking frogs, and they enjoyed swinging underneath the trees. Sometimes they would play like a king and his subjects among themselves. So in this way, Balarama and Krishna, along with all their friends, played all kinds of sports and enjoyed the soothing atmosphere of Vrndavan, full of rivers, lakes, rivulets, streams, fine trees, and excellent gardens filled with fruits and flowers. Om Tat Sat. Krishna Book, Chapter 18, Part 2. Enter Palamba Asura. Once, while the cowherder boys were engaged in their transcendental pastimes, a great demon of the name Palamba entered their company, desiring to kidnap both Balaram and Krishna. Although Krishna was playing the part of an ordinary cowherder boy, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna could understand everything, past, present, and future, just as it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. So when Palamba Asura entered their company, Krishna began to think how he was going to kill this demon. Externally, however, he received Palamba Asura as a friend. "Oh, my dear friend, it is very good that you have come to take part in our pastimes." Krishna then called all of his cowherder boyfriends and ordered them, "Now we shall play in pairs. We shall challenge one another in pairs." And with this proposal, all the cowherder boys assembled together. Some of them took the side of Krishna, and some of them took the side of Balaram, and they arranged to play in duel. The defeated members in duel fighting would have to carry the victorious members on their backs, just as a horse carries its master. They then began playing, and at the same time tended the cows as they proceeded through Vrndavan forest. As it is, the party of Balaram, accompanied by Sridham and Vrishabha, had come out victorious, while Krishna's party had to carry them on their backs through the Vrndavan forest. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, being thus defeated, had to carry Sridhama on his back, and Bhadrasena carried Vrishabha. Imitating their play, Palamba Asura, who was appearing there as a cowherder boy, had to carry Balaram on his back. Palamba Asura was the greatest of demons, and Palamba had calculated that Krishna was indeed the most powerful of all the cowherder boys. So, in order to avoid the company of Krishna, Palamba Asura carried Balaram far, far away. This demon was undoubtedly very strong and powerful, but after all, he was carrying Balaram, who is compared to a mighty mountain. Therefore, Palamba Asura began to feel the heavy burden. This caused him to assume his real form as a demon. And when Palamba appeared in his real demoniac feature, he was decorated with a golden helmet and earrings, and looked just like a cloud with lightning carrying the moon. Balaram soon observed the demon's body expanding up to the limits of the clouds, with his eyes dazzling like blazing fire, and his mouth flashing with sharpened teeth. At first, Balaram was surprised by the demon's appearance, and he began to wonder, "Oh, how is it that all of a sudden this carrier has changed in every way?" But with a clear mind, Balaram could quickly understand that he was being carried away by his friends, by a demon who intended to kill him. Immediately, Balaram struck the head of Palamba Asura with a strong fist, just as the king of the heavenly planets, Indra, strikes a mountain with his thunderbolt. Being stricken by the fist of Balaram, Palamba Asura fell down dead, just like a snake with a smashed head. Blood poured from his mouth. And when the demon fell, Palamba made a tremendous sound, and it seemed as if a great hill were falling upon being struck by the thunderbolt of King Indra. All of the cowherd boys then rushed to the very spot. Being astonished by the ghastly scene, the cowherder boys began to praise Balaram. "Well done! Well done, Balaram!" Then, all of them embraced Balaram with great affection, thinking that he had returned from death, and the cowherder boys offered their blessings and congratulations. Meanwhile, the demigods in the heavenly planets became very satisfied and showered flowers upon the transcendental body of Balaram, and the demigods also offered their blessings and congratulations for Balaram having killed the great demon Palamba Asura. Om Tat Sat. Krishna Book, Chapter 19. Krishna devours yet another forest fire. While Krishna and Balaram and their cowherder friends were engaged in the pastimes which were just described, the cows, being unobserved, began to wander off on their own, entering farther and farther into the deepest part of the forest, because they were allured by fresh grass. The goats, cows, and buffalo traveled from one forest to another, and they entered the forest known as Ishikatavi. This forest was full of green grass, and therefore they were all allured. But when they entered, they saw that there was another forest fire, and so they began to cry. On the other side, Balaram and Krishna, along with their cowherder boyfriends, could not find their animals, and so they became very aggrieved. They then began to trace the cows by following their footprints, as well as the path of eaten grass. All of the cowherder boys were fearing that their very means of livelihood, the cows, were now lost. While searching out the cows in the forest, they themselves became very much tired and thirsty. However, soon they heard the crying of their cows. Krishna began to call the cows by their respective names with great noise. And upon hearing Krishna calling, the cows immediately replied with joy. But by this time, the forest fire had surrounded all of them, and so the situation appeared to be very fearful. The flames increased as the air blew very quickly, and it appeared that everything movable and immovable would soon be devoured. All the cows and the boys became very frightened, and they looked towards Balarama and Krishna the way a dying man looks at the picture of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They then sang, "Oh, my dear Krishna, my dear Krishna, you and Balarama are very powerful. We are now burning from the heat of this blazing fire. So let us take shelter of your lotus feet. We know you can protect us from this great danger. Our dear friend Krishna, we are your intimate friends, so it is not right that we should suffer in this way. We are all completely dependent upon you, and you are the knower of all religious life. We do not know anyone except you." The personality of Godhead, Krishna, heard the appealing voices of his friends, and so, casting a pleasing glance over them, Krishna began to answer. And by speaking through his eyes, Krishna impressed upon his friends that there was no cause for fear. And then he assured them, "Don't worry, don't worry." Then Krishna, the supreme mystic, the powerful personality of Godhead, immediately swallowed up all the flames of the fire. The cows and boys were thus saved from imminent danger. Out of fear, the boys were almost unconscious, but when they regained their full consciousness and opened their eyes, they saw that they were once again in the Bandira forest with Krishna, Balaram, and the cows. Indeed, they were astonished to see that they were now completely free from the attack of the blazing fire, and that the cows were also saved. Secretly, they thought that Krishna must not be an ordinary boy, but some kind of demigod. Later in the evening, Krishna and Balaram, along with the boys and cows, returned to Vrndavan, playing upon their flutes. And as they approached the village, all the gopis became very joyous. For throughout the day, the gopis used to think of Krishna while he was in the forest, and in his absence, they were considering one moment to be like 12 years. Om Tat Sat. Krishna Book, Chapter 20, Part 1. Krishna and Balaram in the forest. The killing of Palamba Asura and the devouring of the devastating forest fire by Krishna and Balaram became household topics in Vrndavan. The cowherders described these wonderful activities to their wives and to everyone else, and all were struck with wonder. They concluded that Krishna and Balaram were actually demigods who had kindly come to Vrndavan to become their children. In this way, the rainy season ensued. Vrndavan forest improved from the rain clouds and was replete with ripened dates, mangoes, blackberries, and other kinds of fruits. Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with his cowherder boyfriends and Lord Balaram, entered the forest to enjoy the new seasonal atmosphere. The cows, being fed by new grass, became very healthy, and their milk bags were all very full. And when Lord Krishna called them by name, the cows immediately came to Krishna out of affection, and in their joyful condition, milk flowed from their bags. Lord Krishna was very pleased when passing through Vrndavan forest by the site of Govardhan Hill. On the bank of the Yamuna, Krishna saw all the trees decorated with beehives pouring honey. There were many waterfalls on Govardhan Hill, and their flowing made a nice sound. Krishna heard them as he looked into the caves of the mountain. When the rainy season was not ended completely, but was gradually turning to autumn, sometimes, especially when there was a rainfall within the forest, Krishna and his companions would sit under a tree or within the caves of Govardhan Hill and enjoy eating the ripened fruits, talking with great pleasure. When Krishna and Balaram were in the forest, Mother Yashoda used to send them some fruits, sweetmeats, and rice mixed with yogurt. Krishna would take them, sit down on a slab of stone on the bank of the Yamuna, and call his friends to join him. While Krishna and Balaram and their cowherder friends were eating, they would watch the cows, calves, and bulls. The cows appeared to be a little tired from standing with their heavy milk bags. By sitting and chewing grass, they became happy, and Krishna was pleased to see them. Krishna was indeed proud to see the beauty of the Vrindavan forest due to the rainy season, which was nothing but the manifestation of Krishna's own energy. At such times, Krishna would praise nature's special activities during the rainy season. Just as it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Mayad yakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetunanena kaunteya jagat viparivartate. There it is stated that the material energy or material nature is not independent in its actions. Material nature is acting under the superintendence of Krishna. This is also confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Shrishti Sthiti Pralaya Sadhana Shaktir Eka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichchana Rupam Api Yasya Cha Cheshtate Sa Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. The material nature is known as Durga and is acting as the shadow of Krishna. So whatever order is sent from Krishna, material nature obeys. Therefore, the natural beauty created by the rainy season was acted out according to the indications of Krishna, who was feeling very proud of his material nature's beautiful activities. Om Tat Sat. All glories to the author of this Krishna book, the ISKCON founder Acharya, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.